Hey friends, welcome back to another video. Today is going to be a book tag, the quarter year crisis book tag, originally created by Roisin's Reading. I'll link her channel down below. We have the mid-year freakout tag, we have the end of the year book tag, looking at kind of your reading as a whole, but we don't really have anything for the first quarter of the year. So that was the intention behind this tag, and I thought it would be really fun to do. So I am going to be answering some questions. I know March is not quite over yet, and technically the first quarter is January, February, March, but I wanted to make this video anyways because the first question is, how many books have you read so far this year? And my answer is 50. And so I thought, I already have 50 books to talk about, plenty to answer these questions, and it is ridiculous. But yeah, I've read 50 books so far, and it's currently only March 15th. But I've read a lot of really good books, and we'll get to those in a second. The second question is, have you already found a book you think might be a 2022 favorite? Yes. Yes, I have. And not just one book. I've read quite a few 5-star reads, and I don't know if I've just been generous with my 5 stars or I've just read some really incredible books. So the number one book that stands out that just hit my heart and was the most amazing reading experience, and I know that I will be rereading one day and that I will be just shouting about on this channel for others to read if they love a heartfelt, makes you cry kind of book, and that is Penguin the Magpie by Cameron Bloom. This was sort of like a family photo diary kind of book. It told the story of the Bloom family. The story is told from the husband's perspective. It is a non-fiction book, by the way, if that wasn't clear, and it follows this Australian family that deals with a tremendous tragedy. Cameron's wife ends up having a tragic accident and becoming paralyzed, and so this is the family dealing with that in the aftermath. And at the same time kind of that all of these events happened, they decide to bring in a magpie chick that fell out of a tree and needs some help and needs some nursing. So it's just like beautifully told, some incredible photographs, and it made me weep. Just so many tears. So that one 100% will be in my 2022 favorite books of the year list. The other two 5-star fiction reads that have the potential to make it into the top list is The Lost Spells by Robert Macfarlane and Jackie Morris. This was a collection of poetry, but the illustrations were incredible. The words were lovely. It was beautiful to read. It felt like artwork, and just one of those books that I would happily have on my coffee table and just pick up here and there. And I highly recommend, if you're at all like into poetry or nature writing or love beautiful illustrations. I didn't even really know that I was really into any of that, but I really loved this one. And then the third book that received 5 stars and high praises from me, I talked about in my February wrap-up as well, was I Must Betray You by Ruta Sepetys. It was incredible, and Ruta Sepetys does no wrong. At this point, I've read every single one of her books, and they were all either 4 or 5 stars, and she just has an incredible way of writing historical fiction. She does write young adult historical fiction, but it doesn't feel like too YA, you know, if you know what I mean. If you're not a big YA person, I'm not a big YA person, but she writes historical fiction beautifully. That one was also incredible, all about the Romanian Revolution in 1989, a really fantastic perspective of history that I wasn't aware of before. Question 3 is, are there any 1-star or least favorite books of the year? And yes, there are, unfortunately. I actually have this one with me. I usually do not keep books that I don't like, so the other one I'll be talking about I already gave away to a little free library, but this one, I just read this literally last week, and I'm keeping hold of it for my March wrap-up. So you get an early preview, and that is The Wonder by Emma Donoghue. I hated this book. Like, it was not good for me, and I was so surprised because this has like a high-ish rating on Goodreads, and I didn't really hear anyone say anything bad about it. This book is about an English nurse who gets called to a remote Irish countryside village to take care of and keep watch of an 11-year-old girl that has supposedly not eaten or consumed any food for 4 months. And it's kind of supposed to be historical fiction mystery. It really wasn't very mysterious at all. Basically, the whole book was, it's a very religious and uptight and like crazy, devout, zealot religious community that takes fasting very seriously. And this poor girl is dying because she believes in her faith so strongly. And this English nurse is trying to save the girl and trying to convince people that, oh my goodness, can you guys stop starving her? And everyone in the town was crazy. I really was annoyed with every character. I did not like it. There was like a random romance in here that made no sense either. Definitely the worst book out of the 50 that I've read so far. And then I'm not going to dwell on it. You can watch my February wrap up if you want more thoughts, but The Wife Between Us also really did not work for me. A thriller that I was so bored by. I was so not compelled. Ugh. No, and I immediately gave it away. It was a book that I owned, and I passed it along because I did not need it on my shelves anymore. Moving on to question 4 is, what is your most read genre so far? And I will insert a little graph here. This graph is from a Google sheet that I got from Hordback Hoarder, who makes really impeccable like stats for your reading to keep track of. I'm not a book journaler. I'm like a data on my computer kind of person. I don't like physically write anything down, but I put everything in here very meticulously. And based on the graph, no surprise, 41% of my reading is nonfiction, which I'm thoroughly thrilled with. We'll get into goals in a second, but I did want to read a little bit more nonfiction this year, and that seems to be happening. Second place, historical fiction. No surprise, my favorite genre. And third place is actually thriller and mysteries. I combine those. And then I'll throw in, if we look at Storygraph, which is another place that I love their stats, 11 books were historical, 10 books were history, so those are nonfiction. I think it's weird that it counts middle grade and young adult as a genre, because that's an age range, but still 7 of each, and 7 mysteries, 6 memoirs, and 5 children's thriller biographies. So I will say those are like my big ones that are representative in what I was reading in the nonfiction and historical categories. So yeah, no surprises there. Nonfiction, historical, and mystery thrillers. That feels very representative of what I've been reading. The next question is a book that surprised you. A book that surprised me I talked about in my January wrap-up, and that is Kachka, A Return to Russian Cooking by Bonnie Frumpkin-Morales. I was surprised by how much this one impacted me, because although this is a cookbook, and it's a beautifully made one with wonderful photographs and lovely recipes, it was also like part memoir-ish. Like every single recipe had a paragraph of either a family story or like a little bit of history behind the dish, and I just connected with this one so much, and it really surprised me how much I loved it and how much I just was like so into this book when I was reading it. I did read it cover to cover, even though it's a cookbook, but really was surprised by that one. I think another surprise for me was how much I loved Lightfall, The Girl and the Galdurian, which is a children's fantasy graphic novel, which I love graphic novels, but I really haven't read any middle grade ones because I haven't really read too much middle grade as a whole in general. It's changing a little bit, but I was just so blown away by how sweet this story was and how much I wanted to keep reading. And the second book in this installment of graphic novels comes out in April, so I'm excited to get my hands on that one. But yeah, this one was lovely, and for all you middle grade fans, I would highly recommend. And then the third book that surprised me is Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie. I read one Agatha Christie book, and then there were none, and unfortunately my unpopular opinion about that one was that I really didn't like it, so I thought I'm definitely not an Agatha Christie fan. But I read Death on the Nile because the movie was coming out and I wanted to read the book and then watch the movie, and I really enjoyed the book. Actually, I was kind of surprised. I gave it 4 stars, so I think this book definitely like redeemed my faith in Agatha Christie. I know there's a ton of Agatha Christie fans out there, so don't come at me, but I just wasn't sure where I stood, and I really didn't have an enjoyable first experience with it, but I'm glad I gave her another chance, and this has definitely opened up my mind to reading more Agatha Christie. In particular, I really liked the detective, Hercule Poirot. I don't know how to say his name, but him, I liked his personality and perspective, and I know that he has a whole series of mysteries to solve. So I might give another one of those a try because I was pleasantly surprised with this one. I definitely came at it with low expectations, but I liked it. The next question is, what is a book that has come out in 2022 already that you want to read, but you haven't gotten to it yet? I made a video in December about a whole bunch of books that I was excited about in 2022, and I've read one of those, I think. So I still want to read quite a few of those, but the 2 at the top of the list that I really would love to get my hands on, I currently have holds for them for Libby, but they're like weeks away from me ever getting them. But it is Daughters of a Dead Empire. It is a fantasy set in Russia that has to do with the Romanov family. It's a little bit out of my element, but I'm intrigued. And then the other one is Tobacco Wives. I think the cover of this is gorgeous. I know it's a historical fiction. I think it's set in the South, has something to do with the tobacco industry, but I'm here for it. I haven't really seen anyone talk about it yet. It's been out for just a couple weeks, so I really need to read that one as soon as it comes in. The next question is, what is one goal that you made for 2022 that you are succeeding at? I will link my reading goals video up above if you're curious to watch that. One goal I made, I didn't make too many, but one goal I made was to diversify my reading every month with 5 different categories. Those being nonfiction, a classic, a historical fiction, a book off my shelves, and a new release. And so far I have been succeeding, at least for the past 2 months, January and February, and already in March, I've been succeeding in reading all of those different 5 categories. But now moving into the next question, which is, what is one goal that you have not really been succeeding at or that you need to focus more on? My ultimate goal was to read less, and that has drastically not been happening because I've read 50 books already. I have no words. I don't know. I've had a weird schedule change in my life with work, and so I've just had more time. I've also been reading more graphic novels and picture books, and those are easier to read. I've read a little bit more middle grade than I've ever have because of middle grade March and early on as well. So I've been reading some shorter books, and just with timing wise, I don't know why I have read so much, but I have. And so I haven't been reading less. I'm already halfway through my goal. My goal was to read 100 books in the year. I'm already at 50 books, so I know that I'm gonna exceed that. Will it be another year that I hit 200 like I did last year, which I never thought would happen and I didn't think would happen again? Perhaps. I don't know. I'm not really worried about it. I don't really care about the numbers, but I haven't really been reading less. I expect it to kind of calm down throughout the year. I think my summer's gonna get only busier with work. We have some traveling happening at some point this year. I don't think I'm gonna be able to continue my stride of reading like 20 books every month, because it's just kind of crazy, but I'm not gonna like stress about it or think about it too much. All right, and then to round it all out, the last question is, what is some new to me booktubers or bookstagrammers or booktokers for 2022 that I would recommend to you guys? Now, I don't book talk. I'm sorry, I'm like an old grandma. I'm like, I don't know anything about TikTok. And I refuse. I refuse to go there. So I don't know anything about book talk. I follow some people on Bookstagram. I don't have a personal Bookstagram. I just have like a regular Instagram that I sometimes share book stuff on, but it's mostly just pictures of my life. For booktubers though, yes, this is my space. I have a few that I've really just been enjoying their content and getting to know them more. The first one is Ray of Sunlight. She is just lovely. She lives in the UK. I have loved the way that she's talked about some classic children's books and some other classics, and just her style of videos, her voice, the way she describes things. I've absolutely loved her content recently, and I'm really excited to read some books that she's recommended, especially since they are set in the UK and I'm going there soon and I just want to read all the books. So she's amazing. If you haven't watched her yet, please do so. Red Dot Reads. I've really vibed with the books that she's been reading. I like her kind of wide, eclectic taste as well. She reads a good mix of nonfiction and fiction. Some books I've heard of, some I haven't, and I've just really been loving her content. I believe she's also from the UK because her accent is lovely. So she's wonderful. Please go watch her if you haven't. Lovely Day with Holly. I know she's Chantel's from Chantel Reads All Day, like best friend. I am new to her channel, but I have loved her content recently and newly subscribed to her, and I'm excited. And then finally, just because I love every single video that she comes out with, and that is Shelley Swearingen. She's just truly like one of the most authentic booktubers that I have watched, and that is precisely why I will watch anything that she puts out. She has so much thought behind what video she's making and what her answers are to certain questions or whatever she is talking about. She's just so fascinating to me, and I just want to be like her best friend. She just has so much like fun and spunk and liveliness behind all of her content, and I love it. And so those are some wonderful book ladies that I have been loving watching. Please go check out and show some love on their channels if you haven't done so already or aren't familiar with them. And then all four of those ladies, if you are watching this at all, consider yourself tagged to do this video if you are at all so compelled to talk about your quarter stats, what you've read so far, if you are reflective in your reading. I will also tag 3 other people that I would just love to hear from, and that is Brittany from Literally Smitten. I would love to know your answers to these questions. Annie's Book Nook, I would love to hear your thoughts, and then also Haley Orton, because I know you love some good stats. That's all for me, and if you watch this and feel like doing this tag and sharing your thoughts, please do so. I would love to see this tag get popular and get some love, because I think Roisin made a really incredible tag, and it deserves to get as much love as the mid-year book tag and the end of the year book tag. So that's all from me, friends. Thank you so much for spending some time with me, and I will see you guys in another book video soon. Bye.